Good afternoon, YouTube and the internet. If you watched my last video, you'll see that I diagnosed that I have a faulty distributor in the Corolla. Now, there's actually several components within this distributor. There's a coil, there's an igniter unit, there's points, or at least the rotor and the points, which are, they're not really points because they're the things that used to clam shut on the old school distributors. Now, just for shits and giggles, I tried to start this thing this morning, and this is what happened. It starts and runs perfectly. So this makes it an intermittent fault, which makes it even harder to diagnose. This apparently happened once before when my son had the car. I wrote it off as a non-event, but obviously yesterday that was an issue when I was filming, and the day before when I needed to actually go somewhere and it wouldn't start. So the first thing I'm going to do to try and narrow down where the fault is I'm going to look for the fault codes. So I don't have an OBD reader, which you could just plug in here and it will do the same thing, but if we bridge TE1 and E1, which is that one and that one, just using a piece of wire, we should be able to read the codes. Just trying to make sure I've got contact there. So to read the codes, all we do is turn on the ignition, and you see the solid check engine light means I haven't made contact. So let's go fix that. Okay, so what you see there is the check engine light flashing constantly. I think it's every quarter of a second. What that means is there are no fault codes. So that tells me that the cam timing sensor is functioning, and the rest of the ECU side components and anything that talks to the ECU is working. So that narrows it right down to just a couple of items. Now, in researching, because it's an intermittent fault, I did some more Googling, some researching this morning, and I found an excellent, amazing video. It was actually two videos. I'll put a link in the description below or in a comment or something like that, because this dude, he was extremely knowledgeable. He happened to be working on a Celica, which has the same distributor. It's got the 1.8 litre, but it's effectively the same unit, same ECU, same plugs, and the same common problems. Extremely detailed workout on diagnosing why the car won't start, using a lot of specialty tools, but it explains a lot of the hows and whys and what that test will show. So that was really good. I watched that this morning and I subscribed to that dude. I can't remember his name, but I'll put it in the comment, pinned comment at the top, and also in the description, so you can go over there. If you've got all the gear that he's got, yeah, you'll be able to diagnose it pretty quickly. Also, he, you know, says how you could diagnose it really, really quickly, but he's also sort of trying to teach the fundamentals of how and why the tests work. So that's why he goes into so much detail, but excellent content. So that flashing light points to the igniter in the distributor being functional, because if the igniter wasn't functional, it wouldn't be picking up the igniter signal correctly. Therefore, you know, the engine would go, oh, hang on, I'm not picking up the igniter signal, therefore I don't know what's going on and what the timing is doing, and it would log that code. I'm not sure if it would run in that condition. I doubt it, but that would point to this being a coil pack problem. So inside here, you can actually access the coil pack and remove it. Now, there's a couple of things. If you are in a hurry and you did the tests that I did yesterday and potentially that quick diagnosis, you can just go and buy a distributor and bolt it on and it'll work. if you need to, if you got more money than you have time, they're $400 ballpark number. Found some cheaper, found some more expensive, but roughly you're looking at about $400 for that part new. You could go to Wrecker. That will fix your problem because it is a spark issue. Now, in my case, I've got time, so I'm going to dig a little bit deeper and see if I can make this fix a bit cheaper. So another check we can do here, you can just use a test light or something similar. Basically we're looking for the injector signal here. So I've got these alligator clips just touching on making contact in the injector, clipped onto my multimeter because I don't have a test light, and basically we're looking for a pulse reading for the injector firing. So when we turn the car over, see the flashing red light? That's the signal going on the injectors. So we know the injectors are pulsing. So in addition to the fuel system checks I did yesterday, that's another one you can do. Again, I stole that from old mate, although he used a better method with different equipment. So that tells me the injectors are firing. That's another indicator that your cam angle sensor is working and that all the signals from the distributor are going to the ECU and then to the relevant systems, because they all come from that. So if your signal is not coming out of here to the ECU or from the ECU to there, it could be a different problem. So again, we're looking at a coil that's all pointing towards a bad coil pack. Now, the dude that I referred to earlier had a really good way to test the coil in the car, and I don't have the equipment that he's got, so I've got another way to test the coil in the car without having to remove it. So basically at this point we need to pull off the distributor cap, which is 1, 2 and I think 3 bolts. So that's pretty simple. I can't pull the leads off this. These high tension leads are part of the distributor cap. So other distributor caps you can actually pull the leads off here, and if you wanted to test spark direct from the distributor you could do that. But in my case, I know the car's actually running at the moment, so I know it's actually got spark and it'll start and it'll run, unlike yesterday and the day before. So for me, that test is going to be pointless, but pulling this off and doing the next test will help me diagnose exactly what the fault is. So having removed the cap, I can see I've got oil here. Now I was aware that there is actually a leak in the seal for the distributor shaft, so that could very well cause a coil pack to fail, having that oil running in the system. So here is what you used to call a distributor rotor arm or something similar. Basically this spins around, fires into these stems, which all look okay. So if one of these is broken or missing, or it won't make a spark across it because the gap's changed, that will affect you. But again, this intermittent problem isn't going to be caused by that. This is going to be a different issue. So what we can do is pull the button off, or the arm. Flat blade screwdriver will do, but I just happen to have this bar laying around. Gently work it off, and I've broken it. Wow, that's the end of that. So at the very least I need a new one of these. They do just pop off. I've obviously just put a little bit too much force on there. There's nothing, no fixtures, nothing keeping it in there, so that's just my mess up. Bugger. The rotor's pretty, those arms are pretty cheap. Now if we look here, you see this point here? We should be able to get a spark out of that, because that sends into that point there, which is spring loaded. So basically that transmits from the coil here into there. It then comes out of here in that little stub into the center of that, which then spins around and arcs across to those points, like so. So as it comes past, bang, you get a fire. That's your timing. So just on breaking that arm, if I was using two hands instead of trying to hold the camera, I could easily pop that off without breaking it. So if you're doing it, just be cautious, pry it up gently, give it a wiggle and a pull with two hands. It will come off, it won't break. It shouldn't break. I've done it wrong, that's why it's broken. At this point, we're going to pop off this plastic cover, and we'll try and be a bit more careful. And we didn't break that one, but we did drop it. I know where it is, and now I've got access to the testing points here and here, these two bolts, and we're going to take a reading with a multimeter for resistance across these, and this should tell me whether or not the coil is functioning within its range or not. So with an intermittent fault, it may have enough spark to run sometimes, and it may or may not. It could depend on the temperature, it could depend on all sorts of things. Effectively, there's a certain range of resistance it should have in the not running condition, like just sitting here, and if it's outside that, the car may or may not run whenever you turn the key. So that's the issue I've got, it may or may not run. So again, I've googled this, I found this document. This gives me the resistance readings I should have for the ignition coil and the secondary coil resistance. So if these are in range, I'm not sure, but I doubt that they will be. I assume that this is the fault right here. So this is the coil. So let's have a look. So for the sake of you playing at home, I've already taken this reading, and now I'll set the camera up where you may actually be able to see it. So we're looking for 1.1 to 1.7 ohms of resistance. So the higher the number, the more resistance, the less current can get through. So if we go to here and here, let it settle down, we're looking at 2.0, which is exactly the reading I got before. So that resistance is too high. Down to 1.9, so that is outside the range, and that's on those first 2 points I pointed out. Now for the secondary test, it is from the positive side, which is that one, to here. And on that test, we're looking for 9 to 15 kilo ohms, so 9 to 15,000 ohms. So let's set this to 20,000. And test the points as shown. So at 12.64, oh, slipped off the point. 12.64. So that is in the range, but the primary one is not in the range. So straight away, that tells me this coil is no good. So instead of having to spend $400 and something on the whole package, I can just replace this. It's 2 screws, and well, 4 screws, these 2 here, and those 2 there, makes 4. So I can just replace this unit and be good to go. Now I do have an oil stem leak in here. I'll think about that. So basically, I think the coils are about 40 bucks. I'll double check and Google that and make sure I've got the pricing right. I'll get one straight away. I'll fit it straight away and make sure this car keeps running. But long term, obviously, I'll probably need to replace the entire distributor. Now, the entire distributor, it's not the value that is a concern for me personally. It may be for you, and so you can just replace your coil, and if you've done that test, and you'll be good to go. For me, it's time. So at the current juncture in time, this is the only car I've got running, so I've got to get it back on the road as soon as I can, and to do that, I just buy that coil, slam it in. This keeps it running. Then I order the distributor because I do need to replace it for the reasons I said before, that oil leak. So it needs, potentially I could just buy a seal. I'll look into that. But for now, let's get this coil pack off, get another one ordered because it's faulty. I better order a new rotor arm, or get a new rotor arm while I'm at it, I think, because I broke that one. So now I've undone my 4 screws. I'm going to put you down where you can see. So I've got 2 hands so I don't break this. Oh, look at that. Now there is a seal or a gasket here which needs to come off, and you need to not break it. So it runs all the way around the whole unit, and it looks like that. If you break that, you have to replace it. The seal prevents water getting in and wrecking the system. Now there is oil here and some grit, so it'll need cleaning up before reinstalling. Now that's loose. We need to undo the 2 terminal bolts under here and here to free it up from the wires, and then we're good to go. They come straight out. So just another tip, when you're going to walk away from a job like this, like I am now, while I go and buy one of these, I'll probably pick it up tomorrow because it's getting a little bit late in the day. What I've done is I've put all the bolts back where they go. Now in the case of the 3rd bolt for that cover, it actually bolts into this when that's connected, so I'll put it back in there. The 2 terminal nuts I've put back on there because I expect them not to come on the new unit. I've got my gasket here, and that's it. So I'll be back on it tomorrow when I've got the coil pack, and I'll get that installed, and I'll be away again. There'll be no drama whatsoever. Then I'll think about the merits of replacing that whole unit or just the seal later. But for now, I'll just get this coil pack sorted and then come back and finish this job tomorrow. I'll put this in the relevant point in the video, but the reason that resistance measurement matters and why it confirms the coil pack is the problem. With the resistance being higher, effectively what that does is that prevents current from getting through the system. So if the resistance is higher, less current can get through. Just think about resistance in normal world. It's not special on electronics. It means pretty much exactly the same thing. There's more resistance to the current, so more of the current gets used, just forcing itself through, which means there'll be a weak spark. So obviously under whatever conditions it runs, it's just enough for it to run, but when the conditions, whether it be the temperature or the coil packs, it just doesn't feel like it wants to at that particular point in time, or whatever combination of factors are affecting it, when it didn't start and wouldn't start yesterday, there just was not enough spark, which you saw at the spark plug. Today, I don't know, the ambient temperature, could be a dozen factors, mean that there's just enough current to get it to run. But it will fail again and again and again and again, and it'll become more and more frequent until I replace that. So if you want a reliable car, obviously you need to fix that. But that's why that matters, and that's why I know that is the problem, and I know that replacing that part will fix it. Afternoon YouTube and the internets, we're back on the Corolla. You have to excuse the neighbours whippersnipping, but I've got to do this now. My new coil is turned up. Here's the old one. Here's the new one. Let's have a look at the resistance on the old multimeter between the two. So we'll take a reading on the old one. Oops. Remember, we're looking for, I think it was between 1.1 and 1.7. That is all over the place. .7. I took a reading before, it was like 3. And this one, .7. So the multimeter reading aside, you can see there's far less resistance on that coil pack. I tested them before when the camera was charging and I came up right bang in the middle of the ranges for this one, and that one was much higher. So I don't know, maybe the multimeter is not the greatest, but it's still, with a back-to-back test, the resistance in this is lower, so I'm going to fit it and it's going to work and the car's going to run just fine. I've also got new rotor arm to replace the one I broke yesterday. So before installing the new one, I've just given a bit of a clean with a rag to get out any residual oil. I cleaned out inside the cap. Now, I couldn't get hold of a gasket kit today or seal kit today, so what I will do is I'll put it together as it is with the new coil, have the car running. I'll order the kit online and that should turn up next week sometime, and at that point I'll pull that distributor out and I'll install the new seal kit, and we should have a distributor that should last another 150, 300, 500,000 Ks. So install, opposite of removal. These cables sat pretty much where they needed to be, so this didn't come with the nuts like I suspected, so we'll just pop that in place. There we go. Put our two cables on the positive, pop our one cable on the negative. There we go. Grab the nuts I had stored on the old unit, get these on. Before we put these bolts in, so we've got easier access, you know, we can move stuff around. Okay, with those done up, pop our screws back in here. Lovely. Put a seal back on. Now it can only go one way. It's got this little tab to indicate it. Just slips over this little rubber stub, which I can't film and do at the same time. That's it, that's in place. So that's a little rubber stub that goes over right there, and that's the gasket in place. This may be a slightly better angle for the next bit of the job. So we've got our plastic cover that goes like so. Snaps on, and our rotor arm can only go one way. There's a flat side on it. That's it, that pushes on. Pop our distributor cap back on. Like so. Drop your bolt. We will never ever find it ever again. That one started. Now where did that go? It didn't go very far. Can't see it. Wait, is that it? Let me have a look. So I found the bolt that I dropped, and here's the last one I need that I stored in the other coil for safe keeping. We just tighten her up. And that's it, done, good to go. Now I'll plug my fuel injectors back in. Grab the key, should start. So the moment of truth. Oops. Boom. Starts up, first go, first kick. Love it. So once this thing's warmed up, I'll take it for a drive, make sure there's no misfires. No misfires or coughing or spluttering or anything untoward. But that's it, that's the job done. That's the coil replaced, which is faulty, trust me, despite what that multimeter might have just said now. it keeps changing that reading, so I don't know if it's the multimeter or the coil. If there's like a loose wire or something in there that's crossing over on different parts of the coil, I'm not sure. But yeah, no spark, and all the tests I did indicates the coil. So we will be away, and then next week I'll get the seal kit and get that whole distributor assembly out and replace the seals. Both ideally, if I can, one on the shaft and the external one. So there's two main seals that's letting oil through there, and I'd like to replace both. I believe one's a press-in item, so I'd like to have a good look at that, make sure I can do it, but I will endeavour to do my best to get that done and film it and show you guys how to do it. So this will be a reasonably long video, I reckon about the 20-minute mark, once it's all edited and put together. So I should only have the sort of the more hardcore guys who watch all the way through. You'll see starting to turn up some of my videos a link to a Patreon. So if my videos help you and save you a bit of money, I'd appreciate it. No pressure, you don't have to, but if you were to go and join my Patreon, that would be appreciated. I don't really have a lot set up there for me to give you in return, so you can watch the videos for free, and that's fine. But if it's beneficial to you enough, then consider that as an option if you want to help me out. The other thing is, I'd like to know if anyone would be interested in any merch or stickers. Now, I am talking to a friend of mine who's a graphic designer about some sort of logo, and there may be sort of some adjustment to the channel name to suit all that sort of stuff, so it'll be a cool logo. But I want to just get a heads up from you guys whether or not you think that'll be something you'd be interested in, you know, like t-shirts, stickers, stubby coolers, that sort of stuff. Let me know in the comments below whether or not you think that's worthwhile. If I don't get a big enough response, obviously it won't be worth my time or effort to invest into that. But if I get a big enough response, yeah, I'll absolutely look at that for sure. So I'll see you guys in about a week when that seal kit turns up, and we'll get this thing ready for another 500,000 kilometers.